Are you struggling to put your ancestor on the map? Well, if so, you could be making this very common genealogy mistake. Hi, I'm Lisa Lisson with Are You My Cousin? And I'm here to take the overwhelm out of your genealogy research. Now, before we get started talking about maps and locations and why we're missing those, I would love it if you'd hit that subscribe button down below. I post new videos here on the Are You My Cousin YouTube channel twice a week, and I don't want you to miss anything. Okay, so let's talk about why we're struggling to find those places on the maps, why we're struggling to put our ancestors on the map. Well, now, as new researchers, particularly, and even if you've been researching for a number of years, we get excited when we find our ancestors' deed. We get excited when we find out where they were. And as we analyze those deeds, as we analyze land grants, et cetera, we are paying a lot of attention to any of the landmarks that are mentioned. We are paying attention to the rivers, and we're paying attention to the creeks and any other natural landmarks that might be there, any towns, any townships that might be mentioned, because we want to be able to place them on the map. Maybe we want to eventually be able to find those areas so that we can visit where our ancestors used to live. But sometimes there's a struggle. We might know the name of the creek, we might know the name of the river, or even the town, but then when we go to the map, we can't seem to find that on today's map. Well, now, a couple of things have possibly happened. Number one, if it's a township, a small town, things like that, they may not exist anymore. Or a lot of times what has happened is an area or a landmark may be known by a different name. And the name may have changed over time, or there could be a very local name, but so that all the locals know what that's called, but when you go to find the official name, it's different. And sometimes they're not close enough for you to be able to put the two pieces together. So that's an issue. But you can actually overcome this. So one of the things that I do when I have gone through those deeds, when I have pulled all those locations like rivers and creeks, and I've looked at those and I'm struggling to find them on today's map, I go to a gazetteer. Now, a gazetteer is like a dictionary of places and landmarks and natural landmarks. And it is a wonderful way to understand where creeks originated, where they flow into, different name changes for creeks, or maybe rivers that have been known by a different name, communities, what they are now known for. So for instance, when I'm researching and I might find that my ancestors happen to be somewhere along the Roanoke River. Well, the Roanoke River had different names prior to being known as the river. So when I am going back through the older maps, what I find is that it is a different name on different maps from different time periods. Now, the Roanoke River today is quite easy to find, but in past history and on older maps, it has been referred to as the Roanoke River and the Roanoke River. Now, I know I am probably mispronouncing those names greatly, and forgive me for that. But the point is, they were known, that is a river that has three different names throughout history. So it's important to know that. Another example would be involving a community. There's a little community known as the Neuse Crossroads in North Carolina. But earlier on, it was actually known as Dunnsville, or even just by plain Neuse. But Dunnsville and Neuse Crossroads, those names aren't even close, are they? But with the gazetteer, it informed me of the name change, and so then I was able to determine that the two were one and the same. So it's important to recognize that if we're struggling to find a location on a map, we need to explore further if there was a name change. Now, gazetteer is fantastic, but sometimes it's really helpful to talk to the locals. So if you live close, ask. Talking to the locals can be very helpful if you have that option. Now, to give you an example, many of you may know that in a previous work life, I was a physical therapist and I worked in home care, but this was many, many years ago. This is well before we had cell phones in our cars. So we usually just called from our office, we would call our patient and we would ask for directions that first time. And some of those directions, guys, because I covered a lot of rural territory, were kind of interesting. Some of my favorites were go into the shopping center and take the left dirt road, not the right dirt road, take the left dirt road out and go back a half a mile into the woods. Or, I would go out one county road, take a left at the tree that blew down in the hurricane. Okay, the tree blew down in a hurricane that happened 10 years earlier, but they all knew where that tree was, but I did not. So sometimes we get into those, and it's going to be important to talk to the locals. And another way to determine if you are looking at an area that's names have changed over time, whether it's the creeks or whether it's the towns, would be to compare maps over a period of time. So be able to look at maps or overlay a historical map on top of, say, a current Google Maps to determine what creeks were there, what names might have been there, and what are being referred, where those areas are being referred to on today's modern map. Okay, so let's kind of bring this all together again. So we've talked about a lot of things here, but if you're struggling to find places on a map, on a current map, what you want to do is consider name changes for locations. Use gazetteers. You can compare maps over times, and if possible, overlaying the historical map on top of a current map. That would be very helpful to you as well. And you can talk to local people or historians for that area. They have typically local knowledge, and they are going to be able to help you narrow things down a bit more. There you have it, guys. It's a common mistake to not consider that landmarks and towns went by other names. But open your mind to that and use that information as you go forward in your research. I think you're going to have more success in those areas where you've been struggling. Okay, guys, there you have it. Head off into your research today, and I hope to see you back here next week. Bye.